John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Excellent.
Thanks for joining me today. Everyone here, I just want to make sure I introduce this gentleman who I know for a little bit. I got to know really quickly, actually, and I learned a great deal already from. This is he's decided to join us at Next in Line. It's our podcast, and our persona really is all about paying it forward. People that are either entering the C-suite journey or whether it be starting your career, whatever it may be. Just it's like all about tips, lessons learned, things that we wish we probably could have told ourselves 20 something years ago. So I'd like to introduce John Shellenberger. He's a chief information officer of Johns Manville. John, you're going to do a whole lot better job than me introducing yourself, so feel free to go for it.
Okay, well, good. Well, first of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to join your podcast. And I really want to say I love the title, but I more importantly love the intent. And the intent is on paying it forward. And I really believe we as leaders, we as just plain old good people, really have an obligation to help other folks out, to share our learnings, to help them along the way. That just makes not only us better, but it makes everybody else better. So a little bit about myself, farm boy, grew up in southern Colorado on a farm, worked and learned a tremendous work ethic and a lot about business during that time. Went away to school, finished my MBA at Notre Dame, came and worked in back to Denver. And
Okay.
actually, I've spent my whole working career in the same Denver office building. So was at Anderson Consulting before I joined Johns Manville 33 years ago. And so I've been in the same office building. So wife, two sons, both graduated from college. Just really love Colorado, and I love again back to your theme, paying it forward and doing what I can to make better people out there in the world.
Thanks for that, John. So 33 years at the same location. So you know that commute pretty much down packed. So I mean, how long of a commute is it to from the office to the office?
You know, and I've been making my current commute 25, 26 years now. It's varied, but it's about 35 minutes. Now, again, coming up from a farm, I'm used to getting up early, so I leave early and I beat most of the traffic. But at night, it's a little bit more challenging because more people are more people are on the road. So, but I'm finally able now to go from home to downtown with no construction. So that's a huge milestone.
I don't know how long it took, but I'm sure it took a while knowing the cities and the challenges that they can have
hmm
with just permitting,
hmm
right? I was going to just get into a couple of questions. I want to let everyone know how we met first, really quickly.
Sure.
We had the opportunity to meet through Colorado CIO. ProSource is a underwriter for 5 different chapters, and Colorado CIO is one of them. It's one of the cool newer chapters, and one of the ones that I would say our relationships became really, it grew really fast there, right? Just because the people are just very awesome and just very approachable. Guys like yourself, John, looking out for the underwriters and just coming up to us and see how we can help us and just learning about us. So we do appreciate that. Now, I got to ask you a question. Are you going to be attending Converge?
I am at 10 Converge for my second consecutive year.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it. I'm going to certainly have to adapt to being in New York City. A little bit different, certainly than a farm, and certainly than Denver. But yeah, it's your hometown. So,
That's right.
but I'm really looking forward to not only reconnecting with people I met last year, certainly the great team at Inspire, the underwriters, but making new connections with leaders across the country.
Do you mind sharing just high level, real quick, what Converge is? Because a lot of the guests, a lot of our audience may not understand that.
Sure. Converge is an annual meeting of CIOs and CISOs from the various chapters, coming together, really not to do anything more than learn, explore, and connect in ways that we're maybe not used to. Ways in which really allow us to explore some challenges to discover and learn from what other organizations are doing. But also, it's a great opportunity to celebrate, leaders and achievements across the different chapters with the Orby Awards, It's well done. It's well organized. And it's something that I think continues to grow as a must do for for CIOs and CISOs. And it's great to connect with the underwriters and stuff because it's very comfortable. It's a comfortable conversation. It's a chance to catch up, but it's a chance to share and learn from what you're leading from your organization.
Appreciate that. No, thanks for sharing that. Any advice for some of the, let's say, first time attendees how to approach it?
Well, advice is, it may look intimidating when you see the list of attendees, but they're all there for the same reason. And I haven't interacted with a single person that wasn't willing to spend a few minutes and talk with you and get to know you. I can tell you afterwards, you make a lot of good connections.
That's right.
But it's, advice is go in, both feet in, take a chance to make those new connections. You'll find it very rewarding.
I agree. That's perfect, man. That's great. I tell people you're gonna learn a lot, you're gonna hear a lot, maybe confirm some things that you already know, right? And that makes us always good. You always need some little bit of validation, right? So we're not thinking that we're crazy all the time.
Yes. And one other thing I'd add is, and you'll have some fun. They do a really nice job, and you will have some fun as well. So.
That's the secret.
Exactly. That is the secret to so many things in life. Have a good time. Don't take everything so serious.
That's true. That is so true. So, John, let me ask you. Just want to ask you some of the broad-based questions that I've always liked asking, especially CIOs. It's always fun for me. What was your first IT job? I love that question.
My first IT job was a programmer, and I will readily admit I was not a very good programmer. Um, I got really excited about the business outcomes that came from programming. Wow, look at what we could do with a program. Look at what we could do with the technology. Look at where we could go. So I drifted early on more towards the business outcomes, the business value that came from it. But my first job was a COBOL programmer.
COBOL, mainframes.
Yes, yes.
Let me ask you a question. Back then, when let's say in that era, did they have your PMO teams? Did they have business analysts, or was it developers? All of the above.
Uh, well, I would say none of those things in my experience really existed at the time. You received a spec from I think they were called analysts, or a senior manager. You received a spec on a certain format, certain piece of paper, and you coded it. And, you never really had much of a chance to see, well, what became of it. Certainly, when it became integration testing, you became important. But yeah, it was pretty much handed to you and said go do this. And that's what's been so exciting with the different tipping points and evolutions of technology is the developer, the programmer, the managers get closer and closer to the usage and the outcomes. And certainly AI now blends all of that together and really creates, I think, meaningful work for people and developers. So you're not just in the old days building the blocks. Now you're putting together the whole package, and that's what's exciting.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm a little bit of an AI junkie. I've been probably played and registered with every single platform you could probably think of. But what I love about it, I feel like AI has leveled the playing field for not only individuals but businesses as well. Like we can punch above our weight now and get business where we typically didn't, just because it just makes us faster, smarter, and better. What's your take on AI? And as far as like talent development, let's take that one part, and then let's say, what do you feel a good strategy out there is to make sure that you have that AI acumen in house?
Well, certainly the opportunities are tremendous, almost endless. And my take on AI, and it's, not unlike other big technology advancements, let's say the internet or my world mainframe to client server, all of those things, came out with some level of hype, maybe in some cases inflated expectations. What's interesting about AI, and it's along the same path, is the speed. the speed at which the change is occurring, and really needs a different mindset from a business technology leader, which is what I'd like to consider myself. Is I've got to balance the tremendous opportunity as CIO, but I got to also make sure that we're defending ourselves against the challenges that come with AI and how people will use it for unworthy purposes. But I think more than any of the other technologies, this one's going to have the greatest people impact. And I think the need to learn how do you manage in a blended environment where you've got future AI agents and you've got employees, and it kind of blurs a bit of the decision making process. And so, how does that human stay in the loop to drive that forward? I think a second thing that's different with AI is an individual skill development is going to be up to them. There'll be no things like, oh, well, go to a class and you'll learn it. Well, you have to experience it. You have to have the curiosity and the initiative to go out there and say, I'm going to try this. It can't be structured because you lose the essence of what can be accomplished. So I really believe, as I've heard several times, right, AI is going to replace people who don't know AI. Or in other words, I could be replaced by AI, not by the technology, but by somebody that knows it. And I think individuals, regardless of where they are in their career life cycle, need to really lean into this, find out the ways that it's going to help them be a better leader, a better employee, and thereby a better company. Because folks that can do it faster, folks that can do it a little bit better are going to have a competitive advantage over others.
Absolutely. Man, I agree with so many different statements you mentioned there, man. Something that stuck out for me just from a people perspective is I do agree it's the people's, let's say, responsibility now, taking, self-development, curiosity. I'm looking to hire talent all the time, and I will tell you that I like to hire. One of the first things I look for is someone that's very curious. Somebody's going to come in prepared with questions. Those are important traits and typically work out. I want somebody that's very, very curious. Imagine you had a room full of curious people, you could solve a lot of problems.
That room being filled with those curious people that know how to engage with others, that know how to be critical thinkers, that know how, and I think the important thing is willing to have the courage to take a risk. That's
Yes,
where you grow.
I love that.
And that's what, we need to continue to mentor people new in careers is you got to get comfortable with risk. You got to get comfortable with failure. You got to, I say fail fast, learn even faster. Focus on your strengths and don't spend a lot of time trying to just figure out all your weaknesses. What are you good at? Leverage that. Get feedback from other people. Openly seek that feedback, but also give feedback to others in a way that help them to grow too. You said one item earlier I wanted to touch on, but in my use of AI, and
Yeah.
early on we hear a lot of, well, it'll make you more creative. And by nature, I'm more of an analytical person than creative. But
Okay.
I will tell you where it started to help is it's broadened my thinking. So,
Okay.
I can use AI to start assembling something that I want to either study or learn. And from there, I see, kind of my brain kick in and say, okay, well, from here we could do this, right? Rather than truly starting with a blank piece of paper,
Sure.
start with something with AI and then, mold it, get your hands dirty with it, and
Absolutely.
go from there. And that's just one opportunity that it brings.
I agree. I think, the more that we work with it and know how to talk to AI, another thing is just like that acumen is as important as any degree anybody could have. I agree with you though. Like, also there's some pitfalls there's some assumptions out there that could be maybe too much of a dependency. If you can tune it the right way, you can actually have it be really curious, ask you questions, validate different things that you're asking, right? It's all about understanding more. I mean, so I'm looking at like for my company, I would like to, provide some formal training. Things are on how to talk to AI, how to really understand and that this is a true shadow or co-pilot of that's next to you in whatever you decide to do, in whatever career path or position you play.
Yep, yep. I mean, I like, with where it is today, I like to look at it is if I had an assistant next to me and I would go giving them an assignment, that's equivalent to entering a prompt. And I
That's
know
right.
they're going to come back and ask for more questions. I know they might not come back with the perfect answer,
Hmm.
but it's that interchange that works. And I really, as I talk to new in career, younger adults and stuff, they're fascinated by it. They use it, but I always tell them, don't let it drive your ability to think.
I think
Don't become so dependent that you don't explore. And back to my earlier points, you don't try things, you don't take risks.
that's right.
Um, it's going to give you an answer, and it may make you more efficient, but don't let it change, your passion, and don't let it make you lazy
That's
because
right.
it's convenient.
It can. Like you could automate almost too much, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you this: as far as because something I want to mention about AI, you mentioned that bad actors and security. That's top of mind, I imagine, more than ever now, right? And can you share any practices around that? Because I feel like that's we got to be in that thing together to fight together because it's scary.
It truly is, right? The ability to simulate a human interaction is it's right now one of its greatest my greatest fears, right? We know it can be used to subversively try to do things, but when
That's
it
right.
has the ability to almost mimic the conversation you and I are having, then it becomes a whole different ballgame. And interestingly, I think the way we overcome that is we need to be more connected as humans so we know more about each other.
Mm,
It may simulate our voices, it may simulate our actions and our mannerisms, but it's not going to know everything about us. And so when
no.
you've got those relationships, you could always ask that question.
Safe word.
Exactly, almost
Yeah,
like a safe word, right? I could ask you, how many times have you been to Converge, right? Or
I know
something
that.
that we know about each other. So, but the other part is then how do you train your organization? How do you get people aware of what's real and what's not real? And this is one thing that covers not only your work but at your home. And I'm particularly concerned about, as I say, highly tenured people or people that are older and even newer to technology is it can sound so real and really making them aware that says it's not real. And it's you in a way you have to let down your guard of, but I want to be supportive, I want to be helpful to, sadly somebody wants to take advantage of that.
It's unfortunate. That's the disappointing part
It
of it.
is.
You
It
know,
is.
because this is a type of tool that can do so many good things and advantages.
Exactly. Can help in so many ways, but it can also be a hindrance and a real threat in many others.
Sure. How about in respects to talent development and let's say AI in general, right? Let's say, who would you say within an organization that you feel like you would need to partner with to kind of, with, what leader or what department that you would need to partner with to make sure that AI literacy or just acumen just kind of raises up, like we level up the company. Like, any recommendations there?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's easy to go to HR. It's like the story I tell, right? Whenever somebody says change management, they look at the HR person in the room. If the projector and they can't connect doesn't work, they look to the IT person in the room.
Absolutely.
And the real answer is, and it's back to the relationships piece. It's not the responsibility of one group; it's a responsibility of the organization. And so IT should bring forward the technology, the best practices for the use. I think we have a good vantage point from a governance and a management standpoint. One thing that's always excited me about IT is we get to see how the business runs without having to necessarily run it. So, but then I think you partner with HR that says, how do people learn? How do we give them the experiences to grow and to develop? And I think a bit of the secret sauce is how do you build these, experts within the rest of your organization that could support and mentor others. We used to call them power users, but this is a little bit different. The
More
people
than that.
that, back to your point, have the curiosity
Hmm.
that are doing it to really extend their reach and connections internally and get other people to try it. And so I think those are important things. And back to my earlier point, I think we need to be more focused and diligent on what are those leadership skills are going to be necessary to manage this blended workforce. And each company's culture will be different. Each company's approach will be different. But I truly believe the more there's an integrated approach to leverage the strengths within the organization, I think the better the opportunity is. And the big shift is back to this: we will do things that don't work, more than at any time before, right? Now, we'll find out sooner, but we'll do things that don't work. So creating a culture where people feel comfortable to try, where people feel comfortable to fail, and build around that. So what did we learn from it?
Absolutely.
Not a scoreboard of missed shots or low performance, but
Hmm.
really what are the learnings that you've had with that.
Oh, I love that. I just had a podcast prep session with a gentleman that was talking about failure, and he doesn't even use like using the word failure. It just didn't work out as they expected to say. It's almost like reframing the mind, because people think that failure is a bad thing. It's not.
Yeah, and it's really not, and that's why my learn fast. The only way you can really learn is to do. And the
Absolutely.
only way you can do is to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, and get in there. I call it, you need to get in business shape.
Business shape. I like that.
If you're working in a business, right, you got to understand what drives that business. Now, everybody could be taught how you collect the money and what the earnings are, but really what makes a business or an organization tick. And I can say when you're in IT and if you're in a corporate location, et cetera, you got to go to where the action is. In our case, we're a manufacturer, so we got to go to those plants and see how people use technology, see what it's like to manufacture and produce and ship and service our customers. So even the advice I give to my sons and nieces and nephews is, you know, be present, get out there, be available, volunteer for things. Don't be afraid when somebody says, "We want you to go do this." Yeah, it may interrupt with something they had planned, but it's not going to interrupt with everything you have planned. And the opportunity and the learning that you get from it are invaluable because sometimes those opportunities don't come back around. It's just like, take the opportunities to maybe make a lateral job shift, or maybe a lower, just so that you learn. Now, I tie it back to it's you got to have a plan, you got to have a strategy. So you can't show up every day and raise your hand for everything and do. You got to understand what are the things that I want to learn and experience, and how am I going to get those. So having a career plan, keeping track of what you've accomplished, journaling what you've learned, allows you to not only keep your mind going, but to say, hey, there's really an opportunity I should raise my hand for.
That's right. No, I love all this, man. I'm writing nuggets down here. You mentioned something about being present. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Dig in. I want to click into that. What's your belief or this in respect to work culture as far as work from home?
I think the best way to grow, the best way to contribute to your organization is you have to be part of that organization. And it's very difficult to do that when you're remote. You can be connected. And sometimes people say, well, I can even collaborate. And there are truths to that. But you miss those one-off opportunities. When somebody you've seen in the hallway, you may ask them a question. Or being present is you're there if they want to ask a question. You're there if they say, hey, I need somebody to work on this. We're not programmed to say, oh, wait a minute, let me go in my office, sign on to Zoom, send a Teams message, send a survey, see who's most interested. You know, those opportunities come up, on a very spontaneous basis. Now, I also respect that it's good to have flexibility and it's good to have balance. But you have to really think through not as much what am I missing when I'm at work as much as, what can I gain while I'm at work? And particularly people young in career, even if you're in a hybrid work environment, you ought to come in every day. Those first few years is when you're going to learn and people are going to connect your name with those activities. And you and I both started that way, right?
Oh, first one in, last one leave.
I remember 5 days a week, jacket and tie, even if
Absolutely.
I was sitting waiting for a consulting assignment. So, but and then that puts you in a position. Then go out and make those connections. So again, it's not like you sit there and people walk by. You got to go out there and really make yourself available. Don't be invisible. That's the worst thing a person can do.
I agree. I mean, you can't be, I don't think you can be as really successful, get to the next level being a lone wolf all the time.
I don't think we've gone through a cycle where folks have maybe missed promotional opportunities yet, but I think that will impact people's career growth when people, name to a face and to a contribution is
Mm-hmm.
different than name on a screen. Uh, those are didn't, and there's certain plenty of situations where remote for a certain company works, but in general, I think if you want to be in the game, you got to be in the office.
I tell you, you got to be on the field.
Hmm.
So something I had to write down is like, what I like it what you said. You said, what can I gain at work? That's the key. Like, having a plan to come in and not just to show face, but what's the intent and what can I gain? Whether it be a relationship, whether it be volunteering, whether it be anything, right? Just, grabbing somebody. There's a lot of those sidebar conversations that turn into whiteboard sessions. How many times that has to happen to you?
Precisely. Or you'll make some connection with somebody that says, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, and they can be work related or not work related, or hey, my family, we just went to the Grand Canyon or whatever. The next time you see them, you can say, hey, how was that Grand Canyon trip, right?
Absolutely.
And they're going to make that connection. So these connections can't be planned. They can't be simulated. That's kind of back to earlier point. That's the human element that
Hmm.
makes all of this work. And
Agreed.
it's up to the individual to make it work.
Agreed.
And so,
That's
yep.
awesome.
And your point, not only what do you gain, but let's say what do you give when you come back? To your point of volunteering and helping somebody else, you give and you gain.
Paying it forward.
Hmm.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned, I feel like we were addressing a lot of, let's say, not a lot of, let's say, the next generation, next in line,
Hmm.
newer people entering the field, because they see all this, a lot of companies remote only and all this and all these benefits and all these perks and it's cost. It sounds fun, but I don't know if I don't know if that's making 100% the business impact anymore. What would you tell like if you had to coach somebody, any type of lessons learned in your career, you would tell somebody that's getting into either the C-suite. Let's start with the C-suite. Somebody starting the C-suite like you have in the past. What kind of lessons learned, or what kind of advice would you give yourself?
So let me take it in two chunks. The advice I'd give when I was, let's say, a manager, senior manager, people new to career, I'd focus on a couple of things we already touched on, right? You got to be curious. You got to have you got to be courageous. You obviously got to make the foundation of everything you do integrity. And even if you walk away from opportunities, the ability to say you maintain the integrity is something nobody can ever take away, but you can certainly give it away. And so it's important that you keep a solid base of integrity. I think having humility and not needing to, even though in some cases you may be the smartest person in the room. Fortunately, I've never really had to face that
I
challenge.
doubt
I've
that.
not always been, but it doesn't need to be always, your go-to of, learn, listen, be a sponge, pick up as much as you can. And I think, beginning to build an enterprise mindset, beginning to say, here are the opportunities that you see. Then I think you're enabled for that next growth period, right? To those higher levels of responsibility, and getting into a C-suite. And I've been CIO here 17 years, which goes by extremely fast. But the thing that becomes important as you move forward, one is, there's fewer people around that you really can spend quality time with. The second thing is this enterprise mindset becomes very critical, not just what your function is doing, but what is it doing within the context of the overall company's goals and objectives. And then that's where alignment, influence, the ability to get things done through others rather than just, here's my title. You really have people use that, but reality is you got to be able to get things done through others. And I think one of the most important things for somebody to bridge is the ability to really delegate effectively. It's hard when you've done a lot of the things, you've taken some energy around building and doing things. To do more, you have to be able to empower other people. You have to be able to say, okay, if I want to move up, who is there to take my place? Take that as a positive, not a negative. And so, and then the higher up you go, you got to speak more and more the language of business. You got to get really comfortable at trade-offs. You got to really comfortable of, I'm not going to have all the information I would need to make the best decision, but I want to be aware enough that says I'm going to make a decision and I know what conditions will change that I may have to pivot. So, those are some of the things I would say. And frankly, the thing that carries all the way through is you got to have some fun. You got to enjoy yourself. You got to be able to sometimes just say, you know what, I really messed that thing up. None of us are perfect. So, have that self awareness, but enjoy yourself along the way, because the responsibility is tremendous.
Absolutely. You work your whole life to, get to a certain level. I mean, you're finally there, and why not have fun doing it, right? Instead of
Yes,
stressing about it all the
precisely,
time.
precisely.
I need to take some of that my own advice sometimes. It's easy. With the stress, it's always stressful when you have a business and all that fun stuff. How much you feel like the CIO role has evolved in general, from days of like where to report to and where it reports to now, typically in an organization, um, and how long did that transformation take?
I would say just in general, I'm not aware of any other functions that have really changed so quickly over a period of time. And I'm not talking just a year, but if I really look at from when I had aspirations to become a CIO to when I became a CIO and where we're at today, there's been a lot of evolution from, okay, be the internal technologist, make sure that our systems run, that we have what we need, do it at an affordable cost, and we'll let you know if we need anything. Or we'll certainly let you know if something's not working. And I think what we've seen now is back to my earlier point of when you're in IT, you get great visibility to how the business runs without running it. And so we can gain tremendous insights that can come back and say, here's the opportunities. And then bring to that, how can technology enable it? And so this transformative component of what the technology can do is there, but it's really around prioritizing what do you want to transform, right? What are the things that you want to digitize? And I think CIOs need to be particularly aware of, let's don't create a lot of technical debt that will limit us in the future. So I think the expectations of the role have certainly changed. I think it's become closer and closer to a business function. That's why I use the term a business technology leader. I've had the pleasure of, as CIO, to report to three CEOs that we've had during that period. And I think the closer, if you don't have a direct seat at the table, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go to the party.
That's right.
And so if you don't have it, go make those connections. But when you have it, listen and really take that opportunity to say, where can IT drive the growth of the business? And our crown jewel, I think, is the ability to organize data and make it available for the people that got to make those decisions. There's a lot of things now that IT is really an enabler to delivering better business performance.
I agree 1,000%. I think IT is certainly to me, and I've seen it change a lot, but I feel like they definitely have a seat at the table. It's an absolute enabler, just like any other department, whether it's HR or finance or whatever it may be. It's might be even have more. It's going to help you become more competitive, more safer. I mean, enabler to everything to hit your goals. So I'm with you 100% on that.
And it touches every single aspect of a business.
As we wrap up a little bit, let me ask you a little bit about. I had some fun questions in here for you. Well, one, I need to ask you. You went to Notre Dame. What is, and I know a little secret about your one of your sons, right?
Yep, yep.
And that's pretty cool accomplishment. But what does Notre Dame mean to you? And based on what recently happened with your kid.
Yeah, yeah. So I went to Notre Dame for my
Mhm.
MBA. And it was my first real being away from Colorado.
Really?
I studied actually science as an undergrad,
Okay.
so it allowed me to learn more about business. I always had a business drive in me from my family. But what it really means to me is, here's a place, strong in faith, but strong in community, strong in purpose. It really personalized why we're here, which is to give back and help others.
Hmm.
And when you're there, it feels different than when you're gone, but you make that connection. And so my wife and I were extremely excited when our oldest son said, he's been working in the workforce, he's a CPA, and said, I want to go back and do my MBA. He applied there and was accepted. And that's awesome to see what he's going to experience, to visit the campus. And, there's areas I'd say that's not where there was
Oh,
nothing there before. Now there's something there. So,
it's changed a little
so
bit.
I think, yeah, but the very thing I told him, besides the fact that a Indiana winter is different than a Colorado winter, is
Mm,
take this opportunity, to make the real meaningful connections and help others that need it. And you
agree.
may be, the thing I learned is, it's easy to see people who you think need it.
Hmm.
It's harder to give it to the people that really need it. And it doesn't
That's
always
that.
mean that it's a financial hardship. It's smiling at somebody. It's spending time with somebody. It's making eye contact with somebody. It's making and giving back is the meaningful part of it. And then, their structure is done in a way that you learn business from a standpoint of the good of business in helping and giving back to where you live. So.
Yeah. Well said, man. Congrats on your son.
And I didn't go there on a football scholarship. Just I said I was bad at programming. I'm even worse at athletics. So
They got a pretty good football team.
yes, they do.
You
Yes, they
know,
do.
let's see what happens this year. I mean, I can't believe football. I think it was a preseason game last night. I can't believe it's already starting.
Well, congratulations on your son as well. I think that's
Thank you, brother.
absolutely awesome,
So
right?
you're gonna be a Mets fan?
You betcha I'm going to be a Mets fan.
Appreciate
Uh,
that.
I'm gonna
Are you a
be
Rockies fan too?
I'm a Rockies fan. I've never been much, east of the Mississippi fan on anything, but yes, and again, that's back to this personal connection, right? I would never thought of that had you and I not made the connections we had,
That's right.
and it meant a lot to me when you reached out and told me that your son had been drafted. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a blessing. It's
Hmm.
still hard to like rip the smile off my face.
Hmm.
He has an official job now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually, I'm going to see him at work tonight. I think at
Oh,
6:30.
awesome, awesome, awesome.
So John, I can't thank you enough for being on this, man. You shared a lot of good insights, a lot of nuggets. I wrote a lot of notes down. I don't,
Good.
every time I do meet with you, I'm always feel like I'm writing stuff down because you say so many good things. Anything from a pay it forward perspective, you just want to leave the last couple nuggets to, let's say, workforce or anybody that you may think of that might need something like that.
Yeah, the, let's say there's two or three things I'd want to leave with. One is focus on results and not the role. In other words, what did you do? What did you deliver instead of what was my title? And I would extend to that of what did you do to make the world better? It's easy to describe maybe what you did to make your business better, but every night when you go to sleep, you got to be able to say, what did I do to make the world better? And what did I do to develop somebody else? So, results versus a role,
Results.
giving back, getting a mentor, being a mentor. And then the third thing I would really say is look for those ways to share what you know, right? And we're all surprised when we say I shared something, and perhaps sometimes like with your kids, you don't even think they were listening, and then a few years later they say it, and you're wow, they got it. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to step out and take a chance and take a risk. You're going to enjoy it as much as they do. And as I tell you each time I see you, I really enjoy these conversations. You are one of the best connections I've made just from how we can talk about what it really means. And I'm delighted you're doing this. I'm delighted you're doing this. And, I'm always here to help and share.
No, man. Those words meant a lot, man. Thank you for that, John. You're a good man. I'm looking
Good.
forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, right?
Yes,
Converge.
yes.
It's gonna be fun.
Good luck to you. Have a good weekend.
You
See
too.
you in New York.
All right. Take care.